for our featured review, there were a couple options we could have gone with, but when there's a Soderbergh movie released in theaters, that's really got to be what we go with. So we are talking today about Blackbag, and Zach is going to start us off on this one. Zach, tell us all about Blackbag and what you thought.
All right, Blackbag is the latest movie from Steven Soderbergh, a director we all know and love. He's directed many different types of movies. He's a very versatile director. He's someone that seems to perform well with both mass mainstream audiences and more sophisticated movie snobs. Blackbag is sort of a nice mixture of both of those elements. The movie, I think you could, Wikipedia defines it as a spy thriller film, but you could also call it a romance movie and maybe even a little bit of a rom-com. The movie stars Michael Fassbender and Cate Blanchett, and they are married spies who both work for the British intelligence agency. And I guess they're a little like Mr. and Mrs. Smith in that they ostensibly, they know that they're spies and they're not quite as good looking as Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie. But we do have Fassbender in some very nice Steven Soderbergh-esque glasses, thick rimmed glasses. And Cate Blanchett looks really great in the movie too. And basically, the plot of this movie is a very almost like James Bond Hitchcockian plot. That's very hard for me to describe. So I definitely appreciate Terry wanting to go to me on this one after having some wine and now being 38 years old. But basically it boils down to Michael Fassbender in the first scene of the movie is told that Cate Blanchett has done something that basically warrants her execution or her removal. And so Michael Fassbender faces a moral crisis. Does he remain loyal to the agency and follow through with that demand? Or does he remain loyal to his wife, who he tells at multiple points of this movie that he would kill for his wife? Meanwhile, we have these cadre of side characters in the movie, and they are ostensibly friends of the couple, but they also are operatives. They are played by Tom Burke, Marissa Abella, Regé, John Page, and Naomi Harris, Academy Award nominee Naomi Harris. And there's a really nice scene of them at a dinner party at the beginning of the movie. Now, that scene, if we were to ever deep dive this movie, was my favorite scene in the movie. There is some tension in that scene, obviously not just between Fassbender and Blanchett, but between all the couples. And I think Soderbergh does a really nice job of kind of distilling the essence of their relationships. It's a little bit like Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf meets the famous dinner party episode of The Office that Todd has never seen. It's very uncomfortable, very funny. They play a game of, basically make a resolution for the person sitting to your right. That sounds like a fun marriage game to play at our next Pinots. Anyway, the movie moves along and we find out that there is this essentially doomsday device that Cate Blanchett is accused of basically being a harbinger for this device. I think there are some Soviet spies involved. There is a nice sequence where Michael Fassbender has to go into security cameras in a setting that was very reminiscent of Vantage Point. Rewind that. He rewinds it, covers up the camera in a scene that's, I guess, a little bit like the Ocean's 11 scene where they cover up the camera in the casino with Casey Affleck. And so, basically the movie is kind of like spies going against spies, but there's this like nice dynamic of a relationship kind of at the core of it. And then the movie kind of does a Knives Out, the menu thing where it gives us this exposition dump at the end where everybody basically double-crossed each other. So what do I think of this movie? Well, I want to take this moment because Terry did ask me to talk about this movie, so I'm going to talk about it, but I also want to mention my two favorite Soderbergh movies, which are Bubble and King of the Hill. Now, recently I was watching King of the Hill, which no one has seen, but it's a great movie. And what's interesting about this Criterion Blu-ray is that Steven Soderbergh basically has a feature on it where he shits on his own movie. Now, very few directors would shit on their own movies, but I guess I respect Soderbergh for doing that, even though I really love this movie.
It feels like a very graphic act.
You know what? It was NC-17 rated extra. That's all I'm going to say. The Criterion people, a lot of bravery for filming that. Bubble is obviously a movie I deeply love, too. I respect Soderbergh.
I got you the DVD copy of Bubble for your birthday one year.
Really? Well, I got the Blu-ray copy, except it was mauled by my former dog at one point, so it's a little bit in poor condition. But anyway, I really love Soderbergh. You know, he delivers in 90 minutes or less, and I think audiences are grateful for that. This is a movie that feels very light. and in spite of a plot that's heavy. And like I said, there's a lot of exposition dump toward the end of the movie, but I think you can still enjoy it, even if you're a lay person like me who's 38 years old and their mind has been warped and I couldn't quite follow everything in the movie. But there's still enough enjoyable elements of the movie for me to recommend it. Now, I will say my critique of this movie is that essentially it is doing what Marvel does with the Tesseract, okay? It's making this doomsday device that all the characters are after, and it's a MacGuffin. And I think even Soderbergh at some point has to reckon, he didn't write the screenplay, and he didn't film it, Peter Andrews did, but he must recognize at a certain level that this MacGuffin device is a fairly silly, flimsy narrative vehicle to unite all the characters. But I think, he's having fun with it. I don't think it's quite on the level of Kimmy from a couple years ago, which is a movie I really liked. But you know what? Anytime you get a Soderbergh movie, it feels like, it's a little bit of an exercise. It feels like he could kind of do this movie in his sleep, and it maybe was kind of done in his sleep. It seems like the production went very fast with this movie, but it's a fun movie. I like the Fassbender performance. I like his kind of monotone delivery in the movie. I think it's got a couple good scenes. It goes by quickly. It's got some good lines in it. I like the idea of a black bag. The title has a sort of significance in the movie that I think has a nice sort of follow through. And I wouldn't spend more than about 4.5 minutes really trying to uncover the plot of this movie, because it makes no sense, but it's fun. So I'm giving it a mild thumbs up. Not one of the great Soderbergh movies, but it is great to see him working and not going to bullshit TV, even when he shits on his best movies like King of the Hill, which is a truly great movie. But I was a fan of this movie. It's a good movie, and people should check it out.
Yeah, I mean, the movie is just really solid. And I think the first thing I said, because I saw this with Terry, and like the first thing I said was there's like a ton of James Bond flavor in this, because you got like a former Bond, a guy who could have been Bond, you have the Money Penny of Bond, you have Amy Winehouse, actress who could be a Bond girl, you got maybe the future Bond with Reggie Jean Page. Like, this is a total, like, this is Bond, everything coming together to make it kind of a Bond plot. Fassbender is kind of getting typecast, though. This is similar to his character in The Killer. He's I guess he's really good at it, and Blanchett really will appear in anything at this point. The movie's really moody. That first scene at the dinner table is like my favorite scene of the year so far. It was really cool. It's peculiar though, because I don't think it really feels that much like Soderbergh, and it doesn't really feel like David Koepp either. Like, he makes all the big budget blockbuster kind of stuff, but it's just a totally rock solid movie. It hits all the marks. I guess it's a little like No Sud Move in Soderbergh's filmography, but it's not as boring. But it's so short. Like, I mean, it feels like an anthology prestige TV show episode, like a Black Mirror episode or something like that. But it's good. I mean, it kind of reminded me of like a little less compelling version of like The Outfit or something with that setting. Yeah, I mean, it's good. It's short, and I'm not going to remember this movie necessarily, but everyone seems to be on board with it. It's a fun movie. Three stars.
Yeah, this is thrice approved. I'm going 3 stars as well. It's a solid movie. I want to watch it again, because this movie, it is so dense, and as it's going through all this stuff, and not only is it dense, but then you also have, like, it starts off by not explaining exactly what's going on, and you have to kind of uncover it as you're watching, which, when it's that dense, it's hard to find, that was exposition that should have gone at the beginning of this. So it takes some time to just kind of feel through what you're watching and what all this stuff is that you're supposed to be paying attention to. The dinner scene at the beginning, for a second, I thought the whole movie was just going to be the dinner scene, which I thought would have been a much more interesting movie. But it still was a lot of fun. I will say MVP might be whoever designed the movie poster for this. 3 stars for me as well.
Yeah, there's legendary stories about the screenplay for The Big Sleep, the Great Bogey movie, Lauren Bacall, about how Howard Hawks didn't understand the script, William Faulkner didn't know who killed each other. That's like this movie, okay? Does anybody really understand what happened at the end of the movie? My wife claims she does, but who knows? But, like The Big Sleep, you can have fun with this movie even if you don't totally get it. And also, like The Big Sleep, you're not going to fall asleep during this movie because, as Todd pointed out, it's mercifully short. I mean, can we give a movie thumbs up just for being short? I kind of think so. By the way, side point, I meant to say this earlier, but we have an award when we do our deep dives called the Ticket Taker Movie Maker. This might be the first movie where a movie ticket stub is the movie maker ticket taker. Like, that is the inciting incident of this movie that makes this movie actually happen. So I think there's some sort of recognition from this board. And maybe Steven Soderbergh is a fan of this podcast. I don't know. But Peter Andrews definitely pulling a Ricky Stenicki with his cinematography, which looks tremendous in this movie. And I kind of like the movie. It had some good polygraph scenes as well. I'm not going to, like Todd, I'm not going to remember this movie at all. So if I'm listening to this in August, wonderful Soderbergh movie. And has Soderbergh ever really made a bad movie? I haven't seen Full Frontal. I heard that was shit. Or Kafka. That was also not supposed to be good. But listen, he's solid. Anywhere he goes, he's a winner. He's like Rick Pitino. In fact, it was almost boring to watch this movie because of just how competent it was. I was almost rooting for this movie to have some sort of break in continuity and say, oh, Soderbergh messed up there. But he's such a polished director that, even material like this, he just elevates and makes really cool.
We also forgot to mention, Name That Skarsgård. Gustav is rarely the answer, but it was in this movie.
Wow.
He played Meacham, the one at the beginning. And
Meacham.
Talking about the cinematography, the first shot of the movie, I turned to Todd and said, say you're a Soderbergh movie without saying you're a Soderbergh movie. Because the yellowish, orangish hues of the lighting from the very first shot, it's like, oh, yep, we're watching Soderbergh now.
Well, the first shot of the movie is an impressive first. It does the Copacabana thing. It does the whole tracking shot is one take. And that was impressive. This is a movie that I think would appeal to both art house sophisticated people and mass audiences who like Marvel movies. So it's a unique sort of overlap that I think works on a lot of levels. But it's not a great movie.
All right. Well, we are all 3 stars, and we're thrice approved on this one. You can check it out. It's in theaters now. Did it win the box office? I didn't see.